Hey, welcome to my weekly live stream. Today I want to talk about pain policy, the opioid epidemic, how yoga is important in this picture. So I have a lot of topics to talk about today. I'll just kind of get going as I wait for people to come on to the live stream. So feel free to, as always, to leave questions, to leave comments. I really believe in collaborative learning, in sort of a hive mind, if you like, of, people have so much different expertise from so many different, levels of experience in their life. And so sharing that together is so important. And don't you think this is really an essential aspect of yoga when you think about it, that yoga is about bringing together. It's about bringing things together. So when we bring our minds together, we have so much more opportunity to share and to learn and to make important changes personally, as well as those transformations that are so important in society. So, okay, let's get started here. So today I want to talk about what's going on in integrative medicine and pain, and this is somewhat related to what I've been doing, what I've been working on the past month or so with the Integrative Health Policy Consortium. And that is a group that is dedicated to bringing integrative medicine into the healthcare conversation. So this is a United States policy issue. Of course, I know some of you may not be from the United States, and you are lucky when it comes to healthcare, because we have such a huge healthcare crisis in this country and such a big problem with insurance as well, because we don't have single payer insurance. So we're working with a very dysfunctional and a red tape kind of bogged down system. And even more so, I think that means that there's an opening for integrative approaches to come in, integrative approaches to be accepted and to be, and there's validation for them and to start coming into to the system. So what's been happening, what was very good decision that key players in the integrative world had made was, let's highlight integrative therapies in trying to treat the opioid crisis, because the opioid crisis is just massive in this country. So there are about 47,000 deaths every year from opioid overdoses. That's 130 deaths every day. We had, it was around 3,000 people died in 9/11. So you think about that and multiply it times 15, and that's what we're dealing with yearly in the United States from opioid deaths. So opioid deaths are the number one cause of death for those that are under 50 years old. So not only do we have an opioid crisis, we have to look at what's underneath the opioid crisis, which is a crisis of pain. We are living in a culture that's in pain, a nation in pain. That's the name of one of my favorite books about pain, by the way, A Nation in Pain. We're living in a culture that's suffering severely from chronic pain. And, the way that chronic pain was addressed, primarily before we understood much about neuroscience, was as a physical problem. It was a physical issue. So physical issues demand physical responses. So when we look at pain as if it's a physical issue, then the common response is medication. And opioids being the medication that seem to alleviate acute pain. So then the mistake was made of conflating acute pain and chronic pain. Acute pain, chronic pain, same thing, same treatment, opioids. What we know is that if opioids came on the market today as a treatment for chronic pain, they would not receive FDA approval. That's how ineffectual they are. And in many cases, opioids actually exacerbate pain. So we have to look at deeper reasons for pain, deeper causations for pain, and deeper correlations. What we know, what the science has been showing over the past several years, and this is a combination of neuroscience as well as the social sciences, is that people who have better support in their life, who feel more control over their life, have less pain. So pain is what's called a biopsychosocial spiritual issue. It's not simply an issue of physical tissue damage. It turns into what's called centralized pain, or combinations of centralized and peripheral pain, meaning that you might have some pain in your lower back, and there may be some tissue challenges there. But what MRIs show is that often there's no correlation between what your back looks like in an MRI and the amount of pain that you're feeling. And so pain has to be approached from a much broader systems approach. It can't just be approached from a physical condition, right? So so the people that are really involved in integrative medicine made a decision and said, integrative medicine is so wonderful for helping people in pain. And so they started highlighting it. So this caucus that met last month, and that's going to continue to meet, it's part of the Integrative Health Caucus, it's called, at Congress, is promoting the use of integrative and complementary therapies in the treatment of chronic pain. So this is really an exciting moment for integrative therapies, and it's a way into the healthcare system to say, like, we have something that can help. There's some other really interesting things happening in, well, let me say one more thing about the Integrative Caucus. So last year they passed a bill. It was called H.R. 6. And that bill is about getting better treatment for pain, essentially. And in that bill, there's, there's this idea that we have to encourage other trainings, the other treatment strategies, not just pharmaceutical treatment strategies for pain, right? So that's exciting, and that was passed as part of this Integrative Health and Wellness Caucus, or they, key players there were passing, were instrumental in passing that bill. Now, the Integrative Health Policy Consortium, in collaboration with the Academy of Integrative Health and Medicine, so these are doctors, put out this, and I think I can put this in I can put the link to this in a comment here. What they are prescribing here, what they're suggesting, is moving beyond medications, non-pharmacological approaches to pain management and well-being. And what is particularly relevant to us as yoga professionals here is number 3, educate. Because right there in number 3, you can see that last bullet point. It says, describe evidence-informed, non-pharmacological self-care approaches to managing pain and providing wellness, including but not limited to, look at that last bullet point, yoga, Tai Chi, and other movement therapies, because what the research shows again and again is that movement is helpful for chronic pain. How are physicians supposed to refer to yoga when yoga is typically described, presented as extreme forms of acrobatic exercise? And this is where you come in, because you can be an advocate and an expert and an educator for the physicians who are prescribing movement therapies to their patients in chronic pain. And I also believe that waiting rooms in physicians' offices and other wellness sort of settings that are connected to physicians' offices can be an excellent place for yoga professionals who teach slow, mindful movement that's helpful for chronic pain to start to integrate and start to offer their services. So I think that there's something really exciting happening right now, and I think it's really important to stay on top of it. I think as yoga professionals, we have something incredibly important to offer this. To see this out there with yoga in it. It's also from the American College of Physicians, the Centers for Disease Control, the National Institute of Health. There are people out there that want yoga to address chronic pain. Chronic pain is killing 47,000 people every year. We can be part of the solution as yoga professionals. We have to understand how to communicate with healthcare providers, how to become educators for healthcare providers how to become advocates for slow, mindful therapies that can really help to make major shifts for people who are in chronic pain. We're not suggesting that we can solve everything. I would never suggest that. The suggestion is that we can be a part of a collaborative effort. And to be a part of a collaborative effort, we can't just isolate ourselves in pristine ivory towers of yoga studios. We have to get out of the studio and go to the place where we can find, the places where people are in pain, where we can help them. There's some other exciting things that are happening that I wanted to share with you in the world of integrative medicine. And one of them is one thing that I noticed is coming out of Harvard, but this is something that actually has been around for several years. I've been keeping up with the work of people like Corey Keyes and Marty Seligman, and some of these people who are instrumental. And the other really important person, let me think if I can remember her name. She's from Chapel Hill. Anyway, I can't remember her name right now, but she wrote a book called Love 2.0. You can remember that, right? So there's some really great people out there that have been working in this direction of what's called flourishing, or positive psychology, or thriving. Flourishing and thriving is starting now to be accepted into the medical world. So it's exciting. So something came out of Harvard, the medical, like Harvard and these medical people and stuff, like big names, that stuff gets accepted. It gets accepted after the ideas have been out there for a while, right? But what at the Harvard T. Chan School of Public Health in Boston released a manifesto in the Journal of American Medicine on April 22nd that dramatically shifts the philosophy of patient care from an absence of disease or infirmity, right, that negative model, to a concept that embraces whole person care and patient well-being. This important paradigm change reimagines health. It's a concept that's not new to integrative health, right? In respect to patients' desires to grow and feel satisfied with their health and the subsequent quality of their life, and not to just be defined by their, by their illness, right? So, according to the guy who put out the study, his name is Howard Koh. He talks about something called a Flourishing Index. And there are 6 domains of patient wellness. The first one is happiness and life satisfaction. The second one is physical and mental health. The third one is meaning and purpose. Meaning and purpose. This is so key. This is so key to our sense of happiness as human beings. And it's something that we have really started to see diminish in the culture, right? So people are feeling a lack of meaning and purpose. 4 is character and virtue. This is bringing values into the conversation. Again, very important. Next one is close social relationships. And the last one is financial and material security, which is why I say when I present at healthcare conferences, I say, and sometimes I get in trouble for doing it, but I do it anyway. And I always say, as healthcare workers in any capacity that we work in the industry, we have a moral obligation to be champions for social justice, because social justice is the way that we start to create more parity in society. And as there is more parity in society, what we see is greater improvements in the health of the culture. I mean, there's research on that. The health of cultures is correlated with greater parity in society. So for people to have financial and material security means we have to work towards social justice. So that came out of Harvard, this idea of a flourishing index. If we want people to flourish, it's a systems problem. There's not like one answer. It's not like go to a yoga class and your life's going to get better. It's a systems problem, but we are important pieces in that system. And the way that we connect with others, the way that we interface with other people in that system, the way that we advocate, the way that we become educators, the way that we become, change agents, is critical in terms of making serious and important strides towards the better health of populations. So So anyway, I wanted to add that to the talk today because I think it's relevant when we talk about addiction and pain and the opioid crisis, that many of these things are symptoms of dysfunction in the culture and lack of a sense of human bonding and kindness and togetherness. A famous physicist in the 1970s, my brain, I'm having hippocampal disruptions. I can't remember his name. But anyway, he talked about something so important. He was studying physics, and he realized that when you looked down at the subatomic level, that everything was interconnected. And so he said that the problem, all of our problems are based on this idea, this error that we make all the time. He called it the crisis of perception. And we always have this error of thinking that everything is separate, and I'm separate from everything else. But the reality is everything from a subatomic level all the way up to the level of relationships of human beings is intimately connected. And when we start to recognize that, then we can start to make changes personally and also in our in the health of, and the health and well-being of our society. So anyway, I hope this is helpful. I will post these recommendations that come from the Integrative Health Policy Consortium right there. I'll post these in a comment. If anybody has questions or comments now before I leave, that's a good time for them. I hope that you recognize that what you do with your yoga practice, with your yoga teaching, can be a critical piece in helping to shift this chronic pain epidemic and this opioid epidemic that subsequently was fallout from that. I also think the Sackler family, who were instrumental in creating the opioid epidemic, have a moral obligation to help to create some shift in that and give all their money away. They're being sued by many states. They probably have to give all their money away. But, the evidence-based practice for addiction is actually quite rare, and that needs to change. And I hope that this crisis is helping that to facilitate the change. And I think that mindful movement strategies, mindfulness, meditation strategies can be a really important part of that shift. Okay, thanks for being here today. It's good to see you, and I'll see you next week. Namaste.